All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Sunday, and good to see you all. And we're live on YouTube, Rockfin, and on Callin. I'm gonna do kind of a short show today, or shorter. It's gonna be an attempt to do a shorter show today, and I'm gonna kind of cover some things that I wasn't able to cover over the last few days. Poppy sent me something that I had in my queue last night, and I think Nick sent me something today, something else that I had in my queue. So I was like, well, maybe I should get to my queue. So it'll be kind of a little different today, shorter, and not so much climate change today. We know it's happening. I think we're clear on that. So let's get into it. Oh, real quick, before I forget, best way to support the show, paypal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, Venmo @Kevin Sandbloom, Cash App @Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/BlackBearNews, and Super Chat, Super Raise, and Patreon, all those kind of good things. All right, thank y'all. So we'll talk about, I mean, we have been talking about I guess you would call it ESG, or people in positions of power, the WEF, Klaus Schwab, blah blah, all the people, right? The Davos crew, the Davos crowd, the BlackRock crowd. Kind of eyeing the idea that they're gonna control your carbon output, or they're gonna control your actions and your motions whilst doing all the regular things. Again, I don't know. I have doubts about how this is going to work out, because how all these people stay in power and make money and continue to do run the world and destroy it at the same time. How they do that is by making all the products and selling you all the products that all contain carbon emissions somehow. So I don't know. They're going to have to. It's not a very sellable idea, and I think people are, on the right and the left, people who believe in climate change or don't believe in climate change. I think everyone sees that this is an issue, that this is not about climate change but about control, and obviously. So let's listen to this. This is from Dutch political commentator Eva Vlaardingerbroek. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Vlaardingerbroek. Eva Vlaardingerbroek. Okay, I made an attempt. I think that was close. On the WEF's plans to impose a personal carbon allowance connected to a digital ID under the pretext of tackling the global boiling crisis. The CEO of one of the largest Dutch banks said, if everyone gets individual personal carbon credits, why don't we make it so that the rich people who, for example, want to go on a holiday a little too often can buy personal carbon credits from people who can't afford to buying a plane ticket or eating meat too often. Again, I don't, whatever. I'm sure this is a plan. I just don't see it going very far. And it doesn't mean that climate change is fake, and it doesn't mean that it isn't everybody's responsibility to do something about climate change. It doesn't mean any of that. But let's watch this anyways. It's interesting.
The digital identity is not just a passport that you will have on your farm. It entails just about everything the government would like to know about you. And yesterday in the Dutch media, we saw a perfect example of what it could entail in the near future. We had the CEO of one of the largest Dutch banks say, why don't we start with a personal carbon credit? A carbon wallet, she called it, actually. Yeah. So right in line with the plans that the World Economic Forum people have for us. And she said it in a way that was particularly funny. She said, well, if everyone gets an individual personal carbon credit, why don't we make it so that rich people who, for example, want to go on holiday a little too often can buy personal carbon credit from other people who, for example, can't afford buying plane tickets or eating meat too often. So we can that way swap it out.
Oh, so if Bill Gates or Leonardo DiCaprio's carbon footprint is getting a bit too big, then some peasant living in his hovel up country somewhere can sell his, and he can't afford to go to Saint-Tropez, but he'll be able to sell his carbon allowance to Leonardo DiCaprio so Leonardo can park his yacht in Saint-Tropez for a couple of extra days.
Exactly right, that's it. So what will happen is the rich will get richer, the poor will get poorer, and they're saying it openly as if it's not a controversial thing at all. It's neo-feudalism, that's what it is.
Die uitstootrechten verdelen en dat elk huishouden of elke burger een hoeveelheid uitstootrechten krijgt, zodat we opgeteld...
That's all I'm going to play of that. I mean, at least they kind of called it the right thing, neo-feudalism. They didn't call it communism or socialism or something stupid like that. Neo-feudalism or neo-fascism, I don't know what you want to call it. Corporate control of everything. It's always the banks. I don't even understand why it is. You know that the solution is wrong when it's people who are in banking who are proposing the solution, right? That's just an issue right off the bat. And why anybody's listening, why these people have any kind of say in what's going to go on with how we approach or tackle climate change is beyond me. I don't, we're not listening to scientists. Of course, the super famous and rich scientists out there who are just out there, they have their own personal yachts because they're so into climate change. No, they don't. But let's look at this from... This is an excerpt from Patrick Bet-David talking about BlackRock. Did I play? I don't think I played this clip. Did I play this clip? Talking about BlackRock. I think maybe I did. BlackRock controlling, $10 trillion in assets. And at the same time, pushing forward the idea of ESG scores or ESG, ideals, and basically controlling your behavior, controlling what's, whether you're acting as a good citizen, acting as a compliant citizen. And if you don't do this, then you may lose access to your banking, or you may face some kind of, social consequences and or movement consequences. But let's listen to this from Patrick Bet-David. And it's true. Larry Fink is pushing. He is, he's kind of like pushed it and then walked away from it. Well, I don't know if we want to do it because he knows it's unpopular. You can't keep going out and speaking about things that are wildly unpopular and make you even more unpopular every time you open your mouth and say those words. If you continue doing that, then you stop losing all the credibility you might have. So, let's listen to this. I mean, $10 trillion is just hard to fathom.
8% of the companies on S&P 500 shareholder is either State Street, BlackRock, or Vanguard. 88% of them. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, US and China. That's how big BlackRock is. And then you see their influence in defense contracts. If you Google top shareholders of Raytheon, BlackRock, Vanguard. Okay, let's go look at Hollywood. Same thing you see there. Let's go look at pharmaceutical. And you're like, wait a minute. These guys essentially have a monopoly. A billionaire to these guys is nothing. They got the kind of control that make companies fire boards. They can replace CEOs. They can replace leaders if they don't like. But they say 50% is a monopoly law. That is already a monopoly. 8% of the companies on S&P 500.
It's wild to consider that one company or a handful, a number, 2, 3 companies have that much power and that much capital at their control. And as they went on to say in that conversation, I think, these people are the de facto leaders of countries. Joe Biden isn't controlling anything. Joe Biden isn't doing anything, getting anything done that he really wants to do. But that's never been his goal or mission anyways. His goal and mission has always been to be a lapdog to the elites. But they control so much capital and they have so much power that they can pretty much direct the policies and the thoughts, and eventually the thoughts of leaders of countries, leaders of corporations, leaders of industries to go their way. And this is not communism. You can't have a $10 trillion company pushing ESG and call it communism. It is not communism. It is fascism, or neo-feudalism, as the woman put it succinctly. Neo-feudalism, meaning, very poor people scraping by, doing all the work. Please, sir, may I have some more? And very, very wealthy, gentrified class, pretty much owning and controlling everything. And then, taking what little the poor have to further line their coffers, right? Anyways, it ain't communism, whatever it is. So, please, people, if you're going to talk about this, at least get your facts and your terms straight. Again, I know it's fashionable to say it's communist. These communists, that's what this is communism. It's not communism, bro. It is fascism. It is rampant. It's capitalism run amok, right, with no controls. Socialism or democratic socialism is the effort, the intention of trying to apply some controls to run amok capitalism. That's what it is. We don't have that anymore. All that socialism went away. That's why we have problems. Just trying to clean that up for you in your mind. If you're confused. But they don't want this communism. It ain't communism. All right. Climate ecological collapse impacts our most basic needs, including water, food, and shelter. True story. Does your community have an off-grid water source that is drinkable or can be made so? Can you plan for or build alternative shelter if disaster strikes? Just a quick message to the people, but everybody here, I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody here, pretty much is hip to this. They understand. Eco-fascism versus eco-socialism, Sean Kelly. I mean, eco-socialism to me would be actually caring for people, caring for the land, taking away some of the capital and power from the wealthy, taking it away from the haves and letting the have-nots have some of it, better distribution of wealth. Well, we already have theft, wage theft and capital theft from the poor. That's not. We have that. That's called taxes, inflation, broken capitalist system, capitalism with no controls. We already have that. Stealing your labor, stealing your wealth, stealing your land, stealing your, your future, stealing your health. We have that. It's called capitalism. It's not called communism. Communism would actually help that. Socialism would actually go in the other direction. So that's what we want to have. That's what we need to have. We had that at one time. That was, back in the day when people thought that there was something like an American dream or a middle class or, right, fair wages or something. Just giving like a basic lesson on what these things mean and what they mean to our history. But people are out there really trying to confuse the hell out of people about what it all means and why it's happening. But please understand, it ain't communism. Communism with a capitalist bent is not communism. It's just capitalism with a bunch of social controls, or totalitarianism, authoritarianism. But that's not communism or socialism. All right, I'll stop being a harpy. Let's see. So I did want to play a few things that I didn't get to yesterday that were important. I was talking about the Democrats' lust for war these days. How they're good military-industrial keepers of the flame. But look at this, Aaron Mate bringing some truth. Somebody's questioning Aaron Mate on what is the actual truth of like where we sit with ISIS and Al Qaeda, right? We love war and we use these supposed terrorist groups as the proxies. Oh, Al Qaeda's in Iraq. Al Qaeda's in Afghanistan. But we actually fund Al Qaeda. We fund the terrorists, and then that gives us pretext to go over there, right? It's problem, reaction, solution. We funded ISIS, gives us a reason to go over there. Oh, ISIS. Oh, what are we going to do about ISIS? And everybody's like, oh my God, please do something. Or maybe the American public is just sitting there like, what? ISIS? Right? But you just say things in the media or say things, and in the people in the government go, oh, I've heard about this ISIS thing. This ISIS is crazy. What are we going to do about it? Let's go to war. Let's drop some bombs. Let's do something. My God. Anyways. Aaron Monte is replying to this. Kevork Almassian says ISIS ambushed a Syrian army convoy in Deir Azor and murdered 23 soldiers today. The escalation coincides with the American military buildup near the Euphrates River. The escalation coincides with the American military buildup near the Euphrates River with the aim of occupying the lands needed to link Bukamal with the U.S. military base in Al-Tanf, which probably has something to do with oil, right? And Aaron Mate retweeted this and said, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And that's a quote from Jake Sullivan. Who's Jake Sullivan? Worked at the State Department with Hillary Clinton. Somebody said, please post a link to your quote, Aaron. The tweet link you post does not make this claim. Are you engaged in incendiary accusations? So he just posts a link from WikiLeaks, the Clinton emails, and this is from Jake Sullivan to Hillary Clinton. AQ is on our side in Syria, meaning Al-Qaeda is on our side, meaning they know Al-Qaeda is our ally, not our enemy, not the people we're trying to go get. It's a good quote from John Kerry. Russia came into Syria. They didn't want an ISIS government. So this is what we're doing. This is what the Democrats are up to. The Democrats, supposedly the good guys, doing terrible shite. Making wars, overthrowing leaders, overthrowing the Ukraine, democratically elected people in Ukraine. This is what, the Democrats has basically become the de facto, the more right-wing fascist wing of the two-party system. And yet, people haven't really caught up to that fact. And they you drape it in a rainbow, and everybody thinks that you're progressive. That's not what it is. You're doing the most fascist things while claiming that you are the most compassionate. It's a pretty good trick because it works. Most people are like, oh, no, of course the Democrats are better. Okay. They're not better. They're no better than the fascist right-wing Republicans, right? So they prove it with their actions. And Glenn Greenwald will break it down for you a little bit here. He's actually talking about the weaponization of the DOJ, Department of Justice, by the Biden administration against Trump, and kind of breaking down like why this is not a great wrinkle in the story. Anyways, here we go.
No matter how you slice it, this actually is a case where the current government looks at polls, sees that there's only one person who's likely to be able to challenge Joe Biden and defeat him for re-election, and that's the person whom his Justice Department happens to be prosecuting in multiple cases, 2 so far and counting, and not just cases that have been brought, but ones that rely upon highly dubious interpretations of law. It's not like these are murder cases or rape cases or bribery cases, things people traditionally think about when they hear criminal accusations. They're very, kind of distant and vague accusations that do depend a lot on free speech rights, and it's just only going to worsen perceptions that the Justice Department and the justice system generally can't be trusted.
Do you think that this is something, if we were seeing it in like Latin America or Central America, forgive the dismissiveness of that appraisal, we would regard it as sort of crackpot banana republic conduct?
Yeah, it's interesting, the reporting that I did in Brazil in 2019 and 2020 that ultimately led to my indictment, but that nonetheless freed Lula da Silva from prison, was based on exactly that argument, that he was in prison, Lula was, at a time when he was leading all public opinion polls for his re-election in 2018. He had a 15, 20-point lead on everybody, including Jair Bolsonaro, and what was obviously a politically inclined prosecution and a politically inclined judge, namely inclined always to be against PT, ordered him arrested, convicted him quickly, and rendered him ineligible to run, which let Jair Bolsonaro run and win in 2018 without having to face Lula. Maybe he would have won, we'll never know. And now they've turned around. The establishment in Brazil hasn't done exactly the same thing to Bolsonaro, knowing that he's probably the only person who can defeat Lula. A court, without even trying him or convicting him of a crime, has now declared Bolsonaro ineligible to run for the next 8 years. So, of course, this is the sort of thing that happens in countries that don't trust democracy. It's ironic, Russell, because when I first started writing about politics in 2005, the first book I wrote was an argument that the Bush and Cheney administrations and the top officials in it had committed obvious crimes, war crimes, through things like torture and rendition and warrantless spying on Americans. And when Obama got into office, after promising to let his attorney general prosecute the people who did that if it warrants, immediately he announced there will be no prosecutions. He said we have to look forward, not backward. And the entire D.C. class agreed with Obama, saying only banana republics prosecute their political opposition. And that was for real crimes like torture and
I'm going to stop it there just because it's a longer video. But what he says is correct. And I was actually going to... North called in the other day talking about the crux of the case against Trump is a memo. And this right away looks... This is the reason why they're bringing this case against him is the fake elector plot. But interestingly, the plot was laid out and put together by a pro-Trump lawyer, Kenneth Chesebro, to put forth slates of Republican electors in the 70s. So the memo then outlines how then Vice President Mike Pence, while presiding over the Electoral College certification on January 6th, should declare that it is his constitutional power and duty alone as President of the Senate to both open and count the votes. Anyways, this lawyer said that, he says it's a controversial long shot would likely be rejected by the Supreme Court, but nonetheless promoted the strategy. So they're basically this is... I'm just lining out that they're blaming Trump for this thing that this lawyer put together and promoted. And guess what's happening to the lawyer? Nothing. Supposedly this lawyer put this plan together and pushed it forward. And so Chesebro is identified in the indictment as a co-conspirator. And he has not been arrested, charged, or whatever. So it's an interesting... There's more wrinkles to this. I'm kind of laying this out simply. But and this whole thing revolves around a memo. So again, I don't know. Whatever. If he did this, he should be, tried as people are who, by a court of law and with facts and evidence and all that kind of good stuff. So, and if he is guilty, then he needs to be charged as such. But what have we seen from most of the things that have been brought up against Trump is that eventually it's the actual thing that they bring up is not it's not even a thing, right? So Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation has already been charged with concocting funding and concocting the Steele dossier. The FBI agent who was involved in the Steele dossier has already pleaded guilty, right? So they made that up, all that stuff up in regards to Russiagate. And they've basically been found guilty of making that stuff up. But that's not, nobody's talking about that. That's not headline news. So, oh my God, they made this story up, right? That took up so much space in the headlines. So, I don't know. It's a weird thing. If somebody's asking me if I'm pro-Trump, I'm not pro-Trump. I just think it's strange that they keep... I think it's more like they like the attention that this brings. Yeah, you guys are funny. I think they like the attention this brings. Like, they like the headlines, like Trump arrested, right? Like this, it's good for business. Like, all that stuff is good for business. Is Trump actually going to be found guilty? It seems like, well, he's been impeached twice and Russiagate, and like he's still kicked off Twitter, and now he's back, and then are they really trying to keep him from running, or are they actually pumping up his brand? It seems like they're pumping up his brand more than anything. So is he really going to be found guilty for this? Is this just another huge headline grab from CNN and the left journalists and the powers that be? Or it's good fodder for well, did he or didn't he, or what is this all about, or it's just all fake and it's just whatever. It seems to be a really good circus show going on. I mean, there's a circus show around the Bidens as well, but not as obviously not as well covered. There's a lot going on with. There's a lot going on with things coming out around the Biden family. Let's play this. Okay, few things I want to show just before I go. William, I give me 1 second. I don't know if I'm going to take any calls because I kind of wanted to keep this shorter, but if you want, give me a second. I'll take your call. I just wanted to get through a couple of things that I really wanted to cover today. This is, well, I don't know if these are things that I guess I can play this. Sure. Former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. Sund reveals that military leaders were so worried about January 6th that they were considering locking down the city, but then mysteriously kept quiet. To Sund. So there seemed to be a lot of evidence that there was a lot of information intel that kind of like 9/11. There was all this intel and chatter, and then when the thing happened, there weren't enough police around. There was no National Guard. There was no police around. They were understaffed and undermanned, even though they had this intelligence leading up to the day. And so you think like, well, you want to be prepared for this, and they were sure. Let's be underprepared. That doesn't look weird at all. So this is pretty. This is the former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund. This is what he has to say about January 6th. So here you go.
Military, the United States military. And this gets really convoluted once you get into the response on January 6th and how I was delayed getting resources. You have the United States military, the Secretary of Defense or Acting Secretary of Defense Miller and General Milley had both discussed locking down the city of Washington, D.C. because they were so worried about violence at the Capitol on January 6th. On Sunday and Monday, they had been discussing locking down the city, revoking permits on Capitol Hill because of the concern for violence. You know who issues the permits on Capitol Hills for demonstrations? I do. You know who wasn't told? Me. Instead, on January 4th, what does Miller do? He puts out a memo restricting the National Guard from carrying the various weapons, any civil disobedience equipment that would be utilized for the very...
That is frickin' bizarre. He puts out a memo restricting the National Guard from carrying weapons or carrying things that might be used for crowd control. But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Demonstrations or violence that he sees coming. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait. So the military says we're so concerned about potential imminent violence that we are considering shutting down the city. But at the very same time, they decide that the National Guard can't adopt an aggressive posture to protect the city.
They're deploying because they're going to be deploying National Guard to assist Washington, D.C. with crowd control at metros and some of the traffic control areas. But they put this out on January 4th, specific to January 5th and 6th. And this direction affected the National Guard in Virginia and Maryland. When I was calling begging for assistance on January 6th, they weren't allowed to respond at first. You look at Governor Hogan. He did a press conference saying he was begging to respond, and he was being denied by the Pentagon, all because of the memo.
So, why?
You begin to wonder why, and especially when you look at things like something that I recently came across when you talk about the military. General Milley, we're now finding out, and it's not from me. This is from Carol Lenning, investigative reporter with the Washington Post, has found that he was using data miner on his own, coming across intelligence.
Tell us what data miner is.
So data miner is an intelligence platform. It's not something your average citizen would have on their computer. I guess it goes in and does crawling across webs. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yes.
But it's not it's an intelligence platform. He's picking up intelligence talking about killing members of Congress and attacking the United States Capitol. And he's not telling me. He's telling select members of Congress. I mean, Carol Lenning writes about it in her book. That's concerning as hell. Because as the chief of police, there's a duty to warn there. And I should be told so I can take the necessary action. I don't know who else he was telling, but he sure wasn't telling me.
Again, what could possibly be the explanation for that?
I'm not really sure. I've done many national special security events, and this was handled differently. No, the intelligence, no jib, no coordination, no discussion in advance. It's almost like they wanted it to be watered down, the intelligence to be watered down for some reason.
Well, does that remind you of something? I wonder. Okay, William, let's do like 2 minutes of a call, William, because I gotta.
Okay, then we'll talk more Friday. Ever hear Operation Mockingbird?
Yes.
This is freaking nonsense upon nonsense upon nonsense. Nobody showed up with a gun. We got threats of people being killed. Really, if you had that, you've had those fences that are up today all over all around the Capitol.
Right.
He's a liar.
They did it after the fact,
this
right?
guy's full of shit.
You think? Oh, really?
My officers were, threatened and they were assaulted. Really? Then how come on the east side of the building they were letting people in? The magnetic door was unlocked. Blah blah blah. Pulling gates aside, waving people in. Blah 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 blah. We know about the shaman, the guy. Blah blah blah. Bullshit. What you had was a staged event on the west side, which was. Hundreds of feds came out. You're not getting 11,000 hours of surveillance footage because it would reveal who those people were and what they were really doing.
They're starting to release a lot of that footage.
Yeah,
a lot of it's coming out. Did you see there was a? I did see. Gene says FBI was 10% of the crowd. Probably.
Yeah.
There was footage of guys, some undercover. Guys posing as like Antifa that day.
Sure. They're the provocateurs a lot
and
of
then
times.
you have Ray Epps, the Ray Epps thing, which is Ray Epps is one of the biggest questions. Like what's going on there?
Well, you had R.D. Steele, ex-CIA, U.S. Marine Corps, saying how these false operations act and how of 174 alleged, terrorist domestic attacks, almost all of them were CIA, FBI.
Right.
I mean, so this is just more of the same, Kev. And so, but I know we got another minute. Let's jump to, fraud vitiates everything. The doctrine of unclean hands, thumbnail version, I got links in the chat. If you're being charged with something, you could prove that the guy is the complaint or the bringing the charges has been fraudulent all along, then there's nothing there. The Biden administration, we had the withholding of all the emails from the IRS, the FBI, everybody involved in the disinformation campaign prior to the election, along with how many of the feds signed the letter that it was all Russian disinformation. Right. So you got fraud on the electorate before the first vote. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then add to that, you've got the withholding of the reports out of Georgia, like we talked about in the last room, and I got the links there, where the Dominion machines are completely hackable 9 different ways. 2 university professors. I'm giving you the overall version, people. The links are in the live chat.
Right on.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really got to wrap it up, but thank you, William, for calling in. I was just going to you know that Ray Epps is suing Fox News.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Give him the old razzle dazzle.
Well, it's funny because this article calls it a conspiracy theory, but there's video everywhere of him saying, we got to go in there. We got to destroy the Capitol. We got to go in. And everybody's going, no, we're not going to do that. And he's the one like, yeah, tomorrow we got to go get those. We got to get in there. Really? That's a conspiracy theory? It's a conspiracy theory if you have actual video of somebody saying the things that they're saying, right? Like I don't. Anyways, it's a little ridiculous. Anyways, thank you, William. We'll talk more tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, man. All right, guys, I have got to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I will see you all tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, peace.